How do we define success, right? So, we've seen these projections. Okay, the team has talked a lot about, oh, we want to build winning habits and we want to play every game. Team 49. Hate that, by the way. Different discussion, though. So we've seen what the team has kind of been saying is their defining success. But as fans, what do we identify as a successful season for the Jazz? Is it losing a bunch of games? Well, the first thing I'd say is probably not, because if we just want to lose a bunch of games, the idea is that each game we lose is helping our chances at winning the lottery and exponentially helping our chances to get a real impact player. And the first one there just isn't true anymore given how the NBA has flattened lottery odds. And people have quoted that a ton. Flattening lottery odds. What does that actually mean, right? The Jazz, we haven't had to pay attention to it for the last handful of years because we've been really good, and sometimes we've even been out of our first-round pick. So why have we even needed to pay attention to it? But let's dig into it. As you can see here, this is a chart showing the probability to win the lottery. Okay, you have picks 1 through 14 in the pre-lottery order on the x-axis, and then you've got the probability to win the lottery on the y-axis. Now, the gray dots, those are the old lottery odds, whereas the yellow are the new lottery odds. So the old odds are where you saw, Cleveland getting Kyrie Irving and Andrew Wiggins and Anthony Bennett when they won the lottery, right? Those are how you saw the Washington Wizards getting John Wall, et cetera, right? Whereas these new odds in yellow, that's where you see, Detroit getting Cade Cunningham, and you saw the Orlando Magic moving up to number 1 to get Paolo Banchero. So it's different now, and we can see the difference here, right? The old lottery said that the number 1 or the worst team in the league got a 25% probability to win the lottery to get the number 1 pick. Whereas now, that's cratered down to 14%. Okay, so being the worst team in the NBA, if your definition of success is being the worst team so you get the number 1 pick, that scenario has been favored less or disadvantaged by the league, right? Your odds have now been shaved by 11%, from 25% down to 14% as the number 1 team. And similarly with number 2, you used to have a 20% chance, now you have 14. And with the 3rd pick, you used to be around 16.5%, and now you're down to 14 again. So when we talk about flattening lottery odds, basically what the incentive is now is, hey, just be one of the bottom 3. Okay, because if your main motivation is to get that number 1 pick, the third highest lottery odds and the first have the same shot at the first round pick, at the number 1 overall pick. Now, Riley Gissman, who we had on the show last time where we did the drafting the Utah Jazz assets, he wrote an article about a sweet spot in the draft where the new lottery odds are actually helping you relative to what the old lottery odds were. And that was in the 5 to 11 range, I believe he identified. And you can see it right here on the chart, right? So instead of that gray on number 5 being lower in the, I think that's the 8.5% range, you're now upwards of 10.5% in the number 5 spot. Okay, and as you go to 6, 7, 8, the gap between what the old lottery odds were and what the new ones are, it keeps going up. Okay, and they don't flatten out again or be the same until you get to about the 12th, 13th, 14th pick, where the odds between the new and old system are about the same. So from this standpoint, being the worst team doesn't really help you if your goal is to win the lottery. Really, I think the sweet spot is being 3 to 4. If you want best chance to win the lottery, be 3 or 4. Okay, because the level to which you're going to have to out-tank San Antonio and Oklahoma City, can affect your team quite a bit. And I could still see us being number 4, number 5, even if we kept some of the veterans, right? We'd have to see some DNP-CDs, and we'd have to, see some rotational shifts, but we could be 3, 4, 5, even if we kept them. We just have to be pretty drastic about it. Whereas if we move off the veterans, I think 3 is a really, really likely spot for us. So I don't really see that being the worst team in the NBA this year as the ultimate goal. I just don't see it because of this changed lottery odds. But really, I think the goal should be in that 3 to 5 range, 7 worst case scenario. Be in that range and shift your goal away from saying, hey, it's Wembanyama or bust. Stop it. Because here's the thing, at 14% chance at the 1, 2, or 3 position, basically what that means is 86% of the time we're losing out on Victor Wembanyama. 86% of the time. Okay? So if you're going to miss out 86% of the time with the first pick, and you're going to miss out 90% with the 4th or 5th pick, really, is there that much difference? No, there's not. So really, I think we shift our focus away from, we've got to win the lottery, to let's be in a position to draft a franchise-type player. What do I mean by franchise-type player? When I say a franchise guy or franchise player, what I'm thinking is, hey, a guy who could be a number 1 option on a contending team. Okay, I think Donovan Mitchell was a franchise guy, right? I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I think he's in that mold of a franchise player. Jason Tatum is absolutely a franchise player. Okay, Victor Wembanyama, now he is a generational player. He's your LeBron, right? He's your Hakeem Olajuwon, right? But Jason Tatum, it wasn't when he was drafted in that ilk. Okay, Victor is. But if we're all shooting for the moon for Victor, we're going to be disappointed. So let's shift away from Victor or bust and instead say, hey, let's be available to draft a franchise level player, someone who could be our number 1 option when we contend in the future. Let's try to draft that guy. Let's be in a draft position where we can draft that guy. So that really depends on how many guys are franchise guys in the NBA. So I screenshotted some tweets by Tony Jones, beat writer for the Utah Jazz, writer for The Athletic, excellent follow, at @TJones on the NBA on Twitter. He says, I don't know if Scoot falls out of the top 10. Scoot Henderson, he was in the G League Ignite game against Victor Wembanyama, also showed out, proved he is absolutely a franchise player, maybe more than that, but not quite on the generational type level that Victor is. So he says, I don't know if Scoot can fall out of the top 2, but you can't tell me that Amen Thompson, Nick Smith, and Cam Whitmore don't have multiple all-star upside. He then went on to say, not with the Thompson twins, in relation to, hey, are those guys in a new tier? That's what was asked. He says, not with the Thompson twins and Cam Whitmore and Nick Smith out there. These guys are all in Scoot's neighborhood. So the idea is, Tony Jones really believes, and we've seen it from other people, that, hey, there's kind of a 5-player tier. Now, that could expand depending on who you ask to, but fairly consensus, there's 5 guys. There's Victor Wembanyama, there is Scoot Henderson, there's Nick Smith, Amen Thompson, Cam Whitmore. And potentially, if you think Oscar Thompson, that could be 6. But let's stick with the 5 for now, okay? Assume that you have 5 franchise players, okay? If you have 5 franchise guys and you want to shoot for drafting one of them, I ran a simulation on at what spot in the order will you need to have, odds-wise, to have a good shot at drafting them. Okay, if you have the 4th pick and you want one of those 5 franchise guys, you're having over a 55% chance at drafting one of those 5. The 4th pick. Okay? More than half the time, you'll be in a position to draft one of those 5 guys. Okay? At the 5 pick, that's a little less than 50% chance. Okay? At the 6th pick, you're still at like 38% chance. At the 6th pick of being able to draft one of those 5 guys. Now this, if you are the person backing the argument for being the worst team, this is your argument, okay? Hey, we want to have a 100% chance at drafting a franchise player. Then that's your argument for having the number 1 pick, right? Having a number 1 pick would say, okay, at the number 1 spot, we have a 100% chance at drafting one of those 5 players. Because worst case scenario for a number 1, for the worst team in the league, you don't win the lottery, you don't get in the top 4 at all, and you end up at 5. Okay, so you are 100% guaranteed if there's 5 franchise players in the draft, at number 1, you will get one, or you will have the chance to draft one. It may not be the one you prefer, but you will have a chance to draft one. So that would be your argument. If there's 3 franchise players in the draft, you could see that here. The first, second, and third teams, they all have a 40% chance of drafting one of the 3 franchise players. Okay, that makes sense. They all have the same lottery odds. Okay, and if you want a 25% chance or more of drafting one of those 3, even the 6th pick is getting you around a 28% chance. So this is what I mean. I think the Jazz need to shoot for this 3 to 5 range and really hope that we're in good graces with Adam Silver and maybe there's some backroom magic that can vault us into the number 1 spot. But even if not, in the 3 to 5 range, we're giving ourselves more than a 50% chance to draft one of these franchise players. And at this point, it seems there's a handful of franchise guys in this draft. And maybe there are more as we get into it, as some players show out in college and really demonstrate some amazing things in the draft process. But thus far, I think a 3 to 5 rank is more than sufficient. And if you still insist, even after this podcast episode, that, hey, we need the worst record, we need the best odds, that's great. But don't make your argument from the standpoint of, oh, so we can get Victor Wembanyama. Because odds are we're not getting that number 1 pick, and we're going to miss out on him. Instead, say, hey, I want the worst record, the best lottery odds, so I have the best chance at Victor, and when that doesn't happen, when that most likely doesn't happen, I still have a 100% chance of getting one of those, of being in a position to draft one of those 5 franchise players. I think that's the argument. So I don't think that our main motivation can be to just lose games. We need to lose a lot of games. But I don't think we should throw out the season or be super disappointed if we end up with 2 or 3 more wins than Oklahoma City or San Antonio. We end up with the 3rd best odds. And I think it's because of this reason. We're still going to have over 60% odds at drafting even 3 franchise players, of the 5 franchise players, and we're still going to have as good a chance at Victor Wembanyama as the other 2. So ultimately, I think, can we balance developing some winning habits? Can we balance mentoring our young guys, having a lot of time for the young guys? I need to see that Will Hardy. I need to see Ochai Agbaji get some real run. Can we balance seeing what we have in Lauri Markkanen and Jared Vanderbilt and Malik Beasley, seeing if they should remain with the Jazz for the long haul? Can we let Will Hardy make mistakes, and can we still still lose a lot of games? Can we balance all of that and ensure we're in that 3 to 5 range? I believe so. I believe we can, and I believe that's the plan. I don't think the Jazz are shooting for the worst record in the league. I just don't. I do think that they're shooting for that 3 to 5 range, and it's going to largely depend on being able to move some of these veterans and and seeing what they have quick enough. Like for some of these guys, I think if they have it their way, they know exactly what they have, so they can decide if they move on from recently acquired guys like Malik Beasley, Jared Vanderbilt, or Lauri Markkanen, or even Kelly Olynyk, frankly, or if they want to keep them around as we continue through the process. So that's going to be really interesting. But I believe that's the plan, and I think the Jazz can do it.